Hi, I'm Amy Altamash, the functional medicine nurse practitioner from Rafa Functional Wellness. And today we're going to talk about why we don't just track the scale. Most women still focus on the number on the scale. They weigh themselves, they feel discouraged when it doesn't change and think they failed. But the scale is only one data point and it doesn't tell you what is actually happening to your body. Today we're going to talk about the four main body composition markers that give us real insight into metabolic health, which is muscle mass, visceral fat, and bone mass. These are the numbers that tell us whether your body is responding, not just losing weight. First up is muscle mass. Your skeletal muscle is your body's active tissue, the part that moves you, supports your posture, and even burns calories at rest. The more lean muscle you have, the higher your resting metabolic rate. That means even when you're not exercising, your body is burning more calories. When people diet without preserving muscles, they often lose weight but slow down their metabolism, making it easier to regain weight later. Tracking muscle helps us preserve and build muscle while losing fat, which leads to more sustainable weight loss. The next up is fat mass. This is the total amount of adipose tissue in your body, and fat isn't bad. Your body needs a certain amount of it for hormone production, immune function, and insulation to keep us warm. But fat mass, when it's too high, is often associated with insulin resistance, inflammation, and metabolic stress. Tracking total fat mass tells us whether fat is actually decreasing, even if the scale stays the same. That's why someone can look leaner and feel better, even without losing a lot of pounds. Now let's talk about visceral fat, the fat stored deep around your internal organs. This type of fat is especially important because it's metabolically active and linked to inflammation, insulin resistance, and cardiovascular risk. Two people with the same scale weight can have very different levels of visceral fat, and one may be at a much higher health risk. That's why tracking visceral fat gives us insight into metabolic risk, not just appearance. Reducing visceral fat improves energy, hormone balance, and long term health. Bone mass is another important marker, especially for women over 35. Bone isn't just a passive structure, it's living tissue that remodels based on activity, hormones, and nutrient intake. Low bone density increased fracture risk and can be a sign of hormonal imbalance or nutrient deficiencies. While most scales don't tell you this, the body composition assessment like the Hume Body Pod measures bone mass so you can ensure you're supporting structural health as you lose fat and build muscle. When most people step on the scale, they assume that the lower number equals progress and a stagnant number equals failure. But the scale can't tell you what you lost or gained. You could be losing fat and gaining muscle and see little change in pounds on the scale. That's why focusing only on the scale leads to frustration and unnecessary restriction. Body composition tells the real story, whether your body is getting healthier, stronger, and more metabolically active. So, how does this work practically? When we track body composition, we set goals based on your muscle, fat, visceral fat, and bone health, not just weight. You can see if your nutrition is preserving muscle, if your stress levels are driving visceral fat retention, or if you need different training to stimulate growth. When we adjust intervention based on real data, the body actually responds. That's how you stop spinning your wheels and finally get measurable progress. One tool I like to use for accurate body composition is the Hume Body Pod. It measures lean muscle mass, total fat, visceral fat estimates, and bone mass, and many others, but in a way that's simple, quick, and clinically useful. Unlike just a scale that measures pounds, it gives you distribution and quality data telling you just how much, not just how much you weigh, but how your weight is composed. When clients begin to see these numbers shift, they experience a level of motivation and clarity that the scale can never provide. So here's a practical takeaway. Focus on preserving and building muscle, reducing visceral fat, and improving metabolic health. These are the changes that improve energy, hormones, and long-term outcomes. Meanwhile, ignore the noise of daily scale fluctuations. They're often just water, hormones, and normal variations. If your composition is improving, your body is working with you even if the number doesn't budge. A smart weight loss strategy isn't emotional, it's data driven. When you know your muscle, fat, and visceral fat trends, you can tailor your nutrition, training, and recovery for actual change. You reduce frustration, confusion, and guesswork. This is the kind of approach we take inside the 35 Weight Loss Blueprint, where every adjustment is informed by what your body is actually doing, not what you hope it's doing. So, if you're tired of the scale lying to you and you want real measurable progress, I invite you to apply to the 35 Weight Loss Blueprint. We use tools like body composition tracking to guide your journey so your body's finally responding to your effort. Applications are now open for the March 2nd application date. But if you want clarity and results, start with data that actually matters.